because it's Christmas Eve, I thought it was the perfect time to put together a Call the Wild wishlist and see if Call the Wild Santa will deliver the gift of new features into Call the Wild over the coming year. Much like last year, this will not be a prediction. I'm not trying to predict what's coming to Call the Wild. I am simply listing out things that I think would be a good addition and also things that I hear throughout the year from the community. There were the turkeys, for instance, which were suggested by the community for a very long time, and eventually they were added to the game. So if any of these ideas are good enough that they catch fire and the community talks about them, maybe they will indeed end up being added down the line. And the first one is going to be the same as the first one last year. I think there's two on this list that are the same that I think are that important. The rest will be new, but it is the animal aging system. The level system, I really don't like how arcadey it is. And I wouldn't even mind necessarily if it stays there, but I do think it's more confusing to new players. You'll see a level 9 red deer, for instance, and sometimes they make diamonds, sometimes they don't. And very often you'll see questions in the community. Why did this not make diamond? And it's because not all level 9 red deer do, but I think if you were to use an aging system, it would be a lot simpler. And while newer hunting games such as Wild Hunter do have a form of an age system, I think having an actual part of the animal's spotting info and a part in the harvest screen showing the age of the animal itself would still leave Call the Wild being unique in that aspect and would add a touch of realism to the game. Instead of seeing a level 3 whitetail, for instance, you may see a whitetail that is somewhere between ages 4 and 6, and when you harvest it, maybe it would be a 6-year-old and a diamond. And then in a rather broad sense, more customization. I always think it's good for a player to be able to cater the game to their personal liking, and now with the ability to customize our weapons in the game, I'm hopeful that'll open up more chances for more customization. And on that note, I do think we still need more weapon customization options. For one, I think we need some metal finishes, so maybe a stainless steel, some kind of standard bluing, just to be able to make the barrel look a little bit more realistic and fit with some other options we have. And I think more camo patterns and stuff like that would be fantastic. Carbon fiber I see requested a lot, and I don't think there is like just a matte black paint, which really surprised me. I know we have a fair number of weapons that by default are black in color, but I would like to maybe make other guns that aren't by default a black colored stock. So being able to add things like that, I hope we can see in the future. Along the customization line, I still am amazed we don't have player customization. I always thought that was coming to Call the Wild, as it is in the Hunter Classic. And to quickly go on a tangent on that, I would love if the clothing options that we choose actually mattered for the hunt. If we wore the correct camo, maybe it would give us a little bit of a visibility bonus, things like that. And even if it wasn't going to change that, more clothing options just to make our character unique for our own experience, I think would be good. Most games have it, especially most multiplayer games, and it's surprising to me that Call the Wild does not. And then, to drive that point home, trophy shots. I think in a way, that's why character customization is not talked about as much in Call the Wild, because we can't take trophy shots with our character and the animals that we take in them. We don't really get to see our own character that often. It only would be in multiplayer and other people seeing it when it would matter. But if we could get trophy shots, and that ability to set up the perfect picture with your trophy, that would really, I think, make the community want player customization more. And trophy shots have been requested for forever, so I think they go hand in hand. If we ever do see trophy shots, I think player customization should come with it. Now, to just go ahead and get both of the repeats from last year's list out of the way, the next is going to be trophy lodges, and I just think it's time we get a new lodge. The Spring Creek Manor Lodge is fantastic, but it's a little bit small and doesn't have all of the possible platform options. And Saseka Safari, while being much bigger, I think it is getting to the point where a lot of players have it filled up, and with all of the multi-mounts that continue to be added, there starts to not be room to maybe do as much as you'd like. So I think it maybe is time for a bigger lodge, and I'd love like a rustic style, much like what the Hunter Classic does. And fair warning, there will be a lot of references to the Hunter Classic in this video, but it's just the aesthetics of that rustic lodge are perfect for my perception of what like a dream trophy lodge would be. So I love to see something the size of Saseka Safari, maybe even bigger, and with more platforms and plaque options to allow us to store those trophies that they continue to design so greatly, and especially with the great ones and the focus on them. The more ability to display them as well as we can, the better. Along with that, I'd love to see more multi-mounts that maybe incorporate multiple Great One species, and new mount types, specifically skulls or European mounts. I think they look really good. It is a potential to maybe fit like a deer on what would typically be a duck-sized plaque. They're starting to do that in the Hunter Classic as well, and maybe they could work out a way to do it in Call of the Wild. The more options for customization to make your particular playing experience unique, the better. And if you can choose more things to put on particular plaques, I think that improves that customization and unique experience. Moving on to something that I think comes right from the most recent two maps, Reventulia Coast and the New England Mountains, a Waterfowl DLC or maybe just a bird hunting DLC. In that, I think naturally would need to be included a new shotgun, and in my opinion a semi-automatic 12 gauge would be a good addition. Because we can now customize our own weapons, it's not as necessary to add multiple variations, so it would be nice if we would see 3 different types of shotguns. But even if we didn't see that, I think maybe a different option would be shotgun chokes. Or if they didn't want to do that, possibly just 3 shotguns that have separate chokes already installed. Since the variants aren't as necessary, you could have 3 variants, not differing in how they look, but differing how they perform due to a shotgun choke. So potentially one that would be extra full that has a little more damage. In theory, you're getting more hits into the bird if you can hit it. One with a wider spread, you could do no choke even, that gives you a wider spread, more potential to actually hit the bird, but you're going to hit it with less pellets, and then somewhere in between. I think that would be a way of getting 3 shotguns and not having to do 3 different gauges, but I think there's a lot of options in there. And then, to take another page out of the Hunter Classic book, a call lanyard. Reventulia Coast has so many kinds of waterfowl now that you need more callers than you can hold. A call lanyard, the way it works in the Hunter Classic, is a separate inventory slot almost, where you only put calls, they can go on that lanyard, and a different key would open up that lanyard and allow you to select the call that you want. That way, your slots 1 through 0 can be used for other inventory items. Going along with that, I think it's time we get another dog added into the Hunter Call of the Wild, and what better dog breed to choose than a retriever? They were the first dog breed added to the Hunter Classic, so there is some experience in Expansive Worlds in making retrievers, and because I think waterfowling is becoming more and more popular in the community as more of these maps actually have waterfowl and things that you would potentially want a retriever to get, I feel like it becomes more and more necessary, especially too when you're hunting something like geese on land when you're not over water, or pheasants that sometimes you kind of just wing and they'll fly really far away, rather than having to crash through brush and track them down and struggle to find them. If you could just send your retriever on your way to go and get it and continue your hunt, I think it would really help as far as convenience goes, and it's always nice to have your dog there as a partner. It's been great to have the Bloodhound around again lately on the Great One Moose grind, and when we're doing things like hunting for quail, pheasants, ducks, geese, rabbits, it would be fantastic to have a retriever there as well to aid in the hunt. And those are my kind of main 5 things that I'd love to see added into the Hunter Call of the Wild in 2023 and beyond. But we know with a fair degree of certainty, with a 4-year pattern from Expansive Worlds in this game, that typically we see 2 new maps added every single year. So if I were to choose one map, one area that I'd love to see added to the Hunter Call of the Wild, is not so much an area addition as it would be the species. You guys can probably guess it. It is Africa 2.0, and I'm throwing in there the addition of a Great One lion. If that were to be the next Great One, it would be the first one that's not a base game animal, but I think things in Call of the Wild are developing to a point where Great Ones are such a focal point that it's only natural to move beyond base game animals, and I think lions would be a really cool one. I'm not going to get too much into what I think a Great One lion could be. There's a lot of fantastic ideas out there already. The Ghost in the Darkness is a really cool idea if you guys don't know that story. Or you could just do, fur variations and things like that. I'm sure that would be just as good. But another Africa map, including some of the most requested species, we think of things like greater kudu, hyenas, impala, leopards are asked for a lot, sable, eland, black wildebeest, and one that I didn't consider as much until lately, zebra. I'd love to see those added to another map similar to Virunga. Obviously, the terrain and stuff would be a lot like what we have on that map, but the species and the actual map itself would be a little bit different. I'd love to see it. There's the potential too for crocodiles, as we had alligators added to Mississippi in 2021. I think it would be a fairly simple, not quite reskin, but very similar AI and all that could work. And alligators are one of the more popular species. I think crocodiles could be too. Steering back into the Great One lane for just a moment, the Great One I actually want to see most added in 2023 is mule deer. And it's a very simple reason. The record mule deer in real life are so incredibly stunning that you wouldn't even have to exaggerate a single thing. If you were to base the Great One mule deer on the top 6, or even top 3 typical and top 3 non-typical mule deer ever, that would be all you'd have to do. They are that impressive. Mule deer can get to such insane sizes, and they look amazing. I would like the models to be kind of touched up. We've seen that with the moose lately, the black bear. The mule deer aren't that bad, but they could definitely be better. And if they were to do that, I would like to see the models kind of improve, just to really make them as good as they can be. And finally, speaking of a remodel, I think it's time that Rocky Mountain elk and Roosevelt elk get a remodel. Frankly, they are just no longer the best elk models in hunting games compared to Way the Hunter, and those would be Rocky Mountain elk as far as the region that Nez Perce Valley is in, but we're gonna go ahead and throw both in there. Way the Hunter's elk look so much better, not only in the models themselves, but I think the antlers too. And I know completely redoing an animal's true axe would be a lot of work, so whether or not they do the antlers isn't as important because of where I'm going here, but I would just love to see the models kind of improve. They're just not quite on par with other things, especially as we see these animals kind of get their remodels, whether it's the whitetail or the moose or the black bear. They could definitely be a lot better, and much like the mule deer, I'm saying it because down the road, I think they can make 4 fantastic great ones that a lot of people would love, and most likely they would need a model rework first, and maybe that could be the first step, getting that model rework done in anticipation of a future great one for them. On that note, those are my 8 kind of 9 things, if you count Africa and the lions as 2, that I'd love to see added to the Hunter Call of the Wild in 2023. And more importantly than what I have listed here, I want to know what you guys want to see added to the game in the coming year or coming years. So be sure to leave that in the comments below. And that is going to do it for this video. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Happy holidays to everybody. And I'll see you next time.